Hello and welcome to Forever Box. It is a new year, and Rusty Erasmus was currently be coming back to work after a good Christmas break with a big task ahead of him. Another year to build a Bok squad team setup to win a third Rugby World Cup. And an interesting year to do it because this is the big year, isn't it? Really, in terms of kind of based almost finalizing players you want to try and give a chance at, players you want to look at, as well as players you want to sort of keep around and see if they're going to make it to the next World Cup. Because next year will then be into the final year of preparation before we are into 2027 Rugby World Cup. And, the year we had last year was a year that we were kind of robbed of in the last World Cup cycle. And this was the year in the last cycle that we then played against the British and Irish Lions and therefore couldn't make any sort of big changes, needed to try and keep a team together just to win the series. This is a very different year because you look at the opposition, for example, and an opposition opportunity to really sort of start building squad depth. Two tests against Italy, a test against Georgia. We wait to see what the end of year tour will be. But one imagines you're going to see probably quite a lot of rotation to begin with. And then as we kind of go through the box season, we'll probably start to see a sort of a final product as such, or a more of a bit of a look at exactly what the Bok team is going to kind of look like and what our strongest Bok team might look like. Now, today we're going to be talking about 5 players who could make their debut in 2025. We saw lots of players making their debut last year. A couple of players who were involved in squads, for example, that didn't get onto the field. Some players who have been involved in alignment camps before. Players whose names have been dropped by Rusty Erasmus in press conferences. And you kind of feel that if you're not making a debut this year, at a push maybe next year, you're probably not going to be involved in the 2027 Rugby World Cup plans because of how we sort of very much like to go with a core group of players who kind of have 30 plus tests, for example, have that kind of experience, have been involved in the box setup for 1, 2, maybe even 3 years. So this is a big opportunity. This year, if you want to try and get your debut, this is the year to really do it, isn't it? And number one, we're going to start with is Ethan Hooker. Now, I think he's somebody who was quite close to making a debut last year. It's especially as we look at kind of the centre stocks. The Kanyam, for example, last year definitely starting to get back to his best, but previously we weren't quite sure what his future looked like. Andre Estes is not currently injured, for example, but Ethan Hooker is a player who is very highly rated. He was brought into the box setup last year on the back of not too many games actually for the Sharks. Incredibly young, very exciting, very, very physical, and that's the big thing, isn't he? You talk about an Andre Estes replacement. Well, you look at the size of Ethan Hooker, and he is pretty formidable. And the nice thing about him as well, especially at the Sharks, is he started to play different positions, starting to learn how to play inside centre, outside centre, playing a lot on the wing at the moment, given the fact that the Sharks centres are Andre Estes and Lakanya Am. So I expect to see him potentially get a debut, as well as another centre in the form of Henko van Wyk. Now, I think if Henko van Wyk hadn't had the injuries in the last 2 years, he'd already be a Springbok, to be perfectly honest. He's someone that was taken on the SAA tour before the World Cup, year before the World Cup. He is incredibly highly rated by Rusty Erasmus, for example. Whenever he talks about injuries, he always name drops Henko van Wyk. On that SAA tour, he was 20 years old. He's now 24 this year, so he has very much had his career put back due to injuries. But every time he comes back, he just looks like an international quality player. And if he can go on a decent stretch here and really sort of go on a nice run and play consistently from now to the end of the season, I expect to see him involved in at least a squad, to be perfectly honest, and if not, getting a potential debut. As you kind of look for that long-term replacement for JC Kriel and Kanya, two players who are both similar of age. Now, I've got two players in the same position because I think it's a position that we need to start to strengthen, and that is tight end. Now, first up, I think we might see Nettling Bashir get an opportunity. Has had a couple of really good outings recently against the likes of an Oxen Chair, for example, scrumming really well. So, I think he's becoming very quickly one of the most underrated players in the country. And given the fact that Francois Herbert, Vincent Koch are not getting any younger, well into their 30s, Thomas Toy, Wilco Low currently sort of have the inside track on tight heads. But Thomas Toy could also obviously be playing in at loose heads. So I think we might see a debut for Neertling for sure. Failing which, I think we might see a debut for Asanate and Klabakanye, who is also a nice young tight head. Performing really, really well. Very consistent performer for the Lions. He's been involved in the Bok sort of squads in the alignment camps and the like. So, he's definitely on the radar. Whether he's going to get his final opportunity this year, we wait and see. But I really do rate him. I think both those tight heads would be very deserving of a debut. And then my final debut is I'm going with Ruben van Heerden. I really rate him. I don't think he's had his best season so far this season, but in the last couple of years has been very impressive. And what we saw last year is that lock could become a potential problem position. You know, it is a position where we've had to make a couple of changes. We've had to really sort of test our depth. We were Nokia, for example, getting an opportunity. So I do think lock is something we're going to have to look at quite a lot moving forward. And there, I think, you know, even a JD Schickling, for example, could be on the radar. But I think Ruben van Heerden is probably somebody who's a little bit further ahead. He has been part of Bok reserve lists and the likes. And we could see us sort of really extend that lock depth, given the fact that Franco Mostert had a difficult long-term injury. You've got Evan Etzebeth, for example, who's now starting struggling with a couple of injuries. Arceus Neyman, you all know his injury history. So lock is definitely a position we've got to build depth for. Those are my 5 players. What do you think your 5 players are? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.